Welcome to ERTT Radio. I'm Mike, your host. Thanks for joining us today. Well, one of the topics that I haven't discussed so far on the radio program, you've probably caught some hints of it in front of my news articles, but the topic is gun control. And I know as soon as you mention that, there's probably going to be the few people that turn it off, don't want to hear about it, which is fine. That is your prerogative. But it's something I figured that I need to discuss, especially involving the latest shootings that have gone on, the LAX shooting and the New Jersey Mall shooting this past week and a half. So I'm going to hop right in, and I'm going to talk about specifically what the Second Amendment says. I'm going to pull out my copy of the Constitution, courtesy of the Heritage Foundation. A little unofficial plug for the Heritage Foundation. If you don't have a copy of the Constitution, I would encourage you get on the website, the Heritage Foundation, heritage.org, and register, get a copy of the Constitution. So when people throw out the fallacies, the lies of, this is what the Constitution says, well, you can pull this out and shock them and say, no, I know exactly what it says. So let's get right into it. Second Amendment. It says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, it puts some emphasis on a few words. That isn't obviously in the specific reading of it, but a well-regulated militia. Back in the founding of the United States, we didn't have an army so much to speak of. And when they made the first, quote, Constitution, the Articles of Confederation, which was pretty much a dismal failure, they had the states that signed off on it. Well, several of the states did not sign off on the Constitution because there were some important pieces missing. And those pieces were pretty much the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, and that became what we refer to as the Bill of Rights. And the Second Amendment, being the one we're talking about now, says the well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. So in order for us to be free, we must have a well-regulated militia. Also goes on to say that the right of the people to keep and bear arms. So that is your right to bear weapons. They called them arms back then. And this is necessary in order to have a free state. Necessary for the security of us to keep ourselves free. This is a requirement. And the Founding Fathers knew that when they put this in the Constitution. They had left an oppressive government in England. And because of that, they wanted to make sure that we stayed free. Their generation, the generations after them, had the guarantee to stay free. And to stay free, in the Constitution, it says that we have the right to keep and bear arms. There's another 4 words that a lot of people tend to miss. Yeah, we have the right to keep and bear arms, which is true. But it specifically says that that right shall not be infringed. Period. That's it. That's the end of the amendment. So that right shall not be infringed. So they can't regulate it, according to the Constitution. They can't restrict the firearms that you can own, restrict your right to have a particular size magazine. According to the Second Amendment of the Constitution, that right shall not be infringed upon at all, period. And that is something that obviously is no longer true today. There are all kinds of laws restricting, what we can have as far as, firearms. There was the Clinton ban back in the day that restricted, size magazines. And all this, which should have been caught in the Supreme Court. But when the Supreme Court doesn't do their job and balances everything against the Constitution, which they should be doing, those laws should be null and void according to what the Second Amendment of our Constitution says. So, now that you got that, let's go to the modern ideas that people have involving the Second Amendment. You have the idea of, that kind of guarantees you purposes for hunting. Okay, you're allowed to keep weapons for hunting. And in the United Kingdom, they have a similar idea to have the rifles for hunting purposes only, for sport. But that's not what our Second Amendment says. It doesn't say you can keep and bear arms if you want to go hunting. Nope, that's not in there. Another idea they try to put out is, well, the criminals are gonna get the guns and they're gonna use them. Okay, criminals get guns. Okay, how do they get these guns? Well, according to the laws of the United States, you have to, when you purchase a gun, there is a background check. And purchasing guns myself, you fill out this form for your purchase, and then that person then calls the FBI with your information and asks pretty much yay or nay whether you can buy that particular gun. And they will say yes or no. Well, in those questions, they say if you've ever been convicted of a felony, so on and so forth. So if you're a criminal, you're not going to be allowed to purchase a firearm. Flat up. So how will the criminals get the guns? Well, they're already criminals. Criminals meaning they broke the law. So what would stop them from breaking the law again and getting a gun from, let's say, stealing it out of a store, stealing it from a friend who got it legally? What's to stop them from doing that? Nothing. So let's say you claim to take the guns off the street. Let's not sell them to anybody. Nobody ever gets guns. Okay, yeah, that worked really well for marijuana. People still get it. People still use it. Even though it's illegal in most states. But people still get it. Break the law. So the law didn't stop anybody. So that's one of the fallacies of that idea. And there's other ideas of, well, if you're keeping it for self-defense, you should only have, you only need a few rounds to stop an attacker. Well, there's been the latest shootings, the school shootings, the shooting at the Naval Yard. And, well, if you only have a 6-shot revolver, you have a lot of limitations. So when you start limiting the capability of the person to defend themselves, you increase the chances of them not stopping the situation and becoming another victim like everyone else. Now, I know there's some of you out here that probably listen to this program that may not own a gun. Some of you may be interested, some of you maybe not. Now, according to the Constitution, you have the right to keep and bear arms. It's not a requirement. It's not like Switzerland where you're required to be trained in their militia, their military, with a particular weapon. We don't live there. So it is your choice, your freedom of choice, of whether you want to own a gun or not. I would encourage you to own one. Obviously, I've seen some people that definitely shouldn't use firearms because they are not responsible. But, by and large, most adults are responsible. In order to defend yourself against those who would do you harm, take advantage of you, my suggestion would be to defend yourself to the best capability you have. Not everyone can know karate. Not everyone can physically defend themselves against Chuck Norris. I know everybody loves Chuck Norris. So, a firearm evens up the odds. If you are the 90-pound little lady crossing the street, a bunch of teenage thugs come up dressed in ski masks. What is to help her stop them? Well, unless she's Chuck Norris's grandmother, I doubt she's going to give a big roundhouse kick and knock them all down. The gun allows her to even up those odds. 5 or 6 guys, she pulls out one pistol. Those 5 guys are going to have a difficult time of getting to her because she could stop all of them really simple, really quickly. So that is my encouragement to those of you who don't own one. Now we're going to flip over to the political side of this debate. There's been the recent incidents, New Jersey mall shooting this past week, and I watched some news reports on it, and one of the things that, I'm not sure if it was a police chief or not, but he was giving the news report after the shooting, and the gunman had been killed. At this point in time, I'm not sure if he killed himself or if he was shot and fired, but I believe it was suicide from what the news report said. But the police officer said that this individual got a legal gun in New Jersey, which isn't exactly the simplest thing to do. New Jersey does have some stricter requirements as far as firearms versus some other states. But he got his firearm by stealing it. He stole it. And so there's all these hundreds of gun laws out there to keep somebody like this from obtaining a gun legally. I'm not sure exactly what his full background was, but no matter if he was a hardened criminal that had done hard time for murder or whatever, he stole the gun. He didn't go out to the store and buy it, he stole it. So no matter what laws you say of, this person can't buy, this person can't buy, you need a full-out background check. You need to have a database recording everybody that has ever purchased a firearm ever in their life. That would have not have stopped this individual. This individual stole it. And even the police officer said that it was a legal gun in the state. So the original owner who had the gun, it was legal. Even following the laws, people are still going to break them. People are still going to do wrong and hurt others if that's what their design or their plans are of doing. Now, one of the things that the police officer mentioned in the news media report was that the guy, I guess it was a SIG, is what he said. The guy had made it to look like an AK-47. Okay, why an AK-47, and why was that specifically mentioned? This is one of the buzzwords. An AK-47 is the most well-known firearm throughout the world. What other firearm is on a country's flag? Can't think of one. Can you? The AK-47 is a very cheaply made firearm. And it is a favorite firearm of a lot of poorer countries to arm their military for the simple fact that they're cheaper to manufacture, they're very reliable, require very little maintenance, and they are very powerful. They shoot the 7.62 by 39 cartridge. It's a very powerful round, short-range weapon. It is also a true AK-47, has two options. The semi-automatic fire or the full auto fire, the original design. Well, most civilians, unless the gun was prior to 1985, if I remember correctly, can't own one without paying a tax penalty on it. So why would he make this SIG, which was semi-automatic? A police officer said he only fired 6 shots from it. Why did he make it look like an AK-47? Well, because the AK-47, is well known, and it strikes fear into people. That is why that particular image is portrayed. So why was it brought up? Well, I think part of it has something to do with politics, but I'll get to that a little later after I talk about the LAX shooting. But that was something that was mentioned. And I guess from what the police officer said is that he had shot himself. So the bottom line for the New Jersey Mall shooting, somebody got a gun illegally and did illegal things with it. The laws are there for a reason, but the laws, unless they are enforced, mean nothing. And a law enforcement officer can't be everywhere. There would be millions and millions of them. They'd have to be on every street corner all the time, protecting every house, every corner, every building. That's not going to happen. The laws don't protect you. The only thing that can protect you is you. Not even a police officer is there to protect you. They're there to ensure the peace, and they are to enforce the laws. Their job is not to protect you. Who protects you? You do. Now let's talk about the LAX airport shooting. And if you guys have read my news article, you've heard a little bit of my comments on that. Apparently a guy got in there, he concealed an AR-15. No matter what they tell you, it's not an M16. Doesn't have a 3-round burst. In the old style or full auto, which wasted thousands of rounds in Vietnam. So it was an AR-15, a semi-automatic rifle. In California, there's a lot of restrictions and laws that you have to go by. When a lot of the gun manufacturers, when they make a rifle specifically for California, they'll say it's California legal. That is because California has a lot of really strict laws regarding firearms. Gun control, they are one of the more liberal states. And at this time, I'm not sure if it was completely California legal or not. But regardless, he came in there with an AR-15. It appeared from the news reports I read that his main targets were TSA officers. Now the question I have for everybody, why the AR-15? He could have used a shotgun, if you read in my commentary on that one. Shotgun is a lot more powerful at close range, a lot more deadly. And there were other options. An AR-15 is not something you are going to conceal easily. It's a long rifle. Even if you have it in a carbine style with a collapsible buttstock, or even a folding buttstock, it is still a long rifle. And he had to have this completely planned out. Hid it in a bag and came into the airport. Now, watching the news reports, the news media is always great at this, and I put it in my news report, that they look for something that scares people. The whole global warming thing, which I will definitely talk about that at another time. But it's something to scare people. Whether it's true or not, it's there to scare. People who are afraid, you can convince them of almost anything. They will believe you because they are scared. And they are going to flock to what makes them feel safe. In this kind of an incident where there is a shooting, what scares people the most? Well, when you start throwing out words like, it was semi-automatic. Well, I'm sorry, most guns are pretty much semi-automatic. Or it was an assault rifle. Ooh, that's a scary word. Well, all this is designed to push an agenda, which is kind of my next topic, about the liberal agenda, which, I'm sorry if this is a shock to people, but the news media, no matter what they claim, for the most part, is liberal and biased. They lean towards the left. And because of that, they are in favor of more government control and less freedom. I am on the opposite side. I prefer more freedom, less government control. Well, a better way to control people is to control their lives, everything about them. What stops them from controlling everything about your life? Well, it's the Second Amendment, because it is necessary for a free state. A free state. So it is necessary for our security in a free state. So in order for us to maintain our freedom, we need to keep our right to bear arms. Now, more government control means less freedom. So in order for us to keep our freedom, we need to maintain our right to keep and bear arms. For them to have more control, we need to lose that right. They could try to go in there and abolish the Second Amendment. There are definitely proponents out there to do that. But they're not dumb. There would be a huge uprising, and it's hard to stop everything that's already out in the United States. There's millions of guns in the United States. There's probably more guns than people in the United States. So to flat out just take it away instantly isn't going to work so well. So what they try to do is they try to regulate it away. And this is why in the media, when stuff is brought up, they push the assault rifle idea. He had large capacity magazines. He had a lot of ammo. Those are all key proponents to what they want to try to limit. What is a high capacity magazine? Honestly, ask yourself, what is a high capacity magazine? Is it anything over 5 rounds? 10 rounds? 20 rounds? That's a high capacity magazine. 30? 50? 100? What is a high capacity magazine? I guarantee if I ask that question, I don't know, 5 or 10 of you will listen to this broadcast. You'd probably, maybe 1 or 2 of you would have a similar answer. But I bet they'd all probably almost be different. Why is that? Because they don't want to define the terms. What's an assault rifle? Okay, the word assault, that's an attack. It's threatening. You know, you got assault and battery, that's a crime. So let's throw the word assault in it and it makes it more scary. But what is an assault rifle? Is it an AR-15? An AK-47? An FS-2000? Is that an assault rifle? What classifies an assault rifle? Anything with a pistol grip? A forward grip? Optics? A bayonet? I mean, really, what is an assault rifle? People can't really answer these questions. You know, the first thing they'll say, oh, it's an M16, it's an AK-47. Those are assault rifles. What are assault rifles used for? Assaulting? I don't know. And people don't. And it's really scary. They throw these words out that they have no clue what they mean. So what the liberal agenda is they'll slowly try to eat away at that. Well, it's an assault rifle. And assault rifles are bad. And, you know, people are scared. There's been a shooting or whatever. So they'll go along with that. They'll go, yeah, they're bad. So we need to get rid of them. Okay? So let's say they get rid of all the, quote, assault rifles. Okay, what's an assault rifle? Well, the first definition is like, okay, AR-15s and make it AK-47s. Okay, anything that, you know, falls in that category. Well, then it's anything that has a large capacity magazine. Yeah. That's a good idea. Let's ban that too. Then what? Well, anything that holds more than 10 rounds. That's definitely scary. We can't have that. Nothing that holds more than 10 rounds. You know, then they can't do as much damage. Okay, so the idiot grabs a shotgun and still kills a bunch of people. Okay, well, let's get rid of shotguns then. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. And slowly but surely, through the scare tactics that is used by the media, your freedoms begin to erode, begin to change. And before you know it, the Second Amendment, which we hold so dear, our right to keep and bear arms isn't just infringed upon. It now no longer exists because people were scared and were willing to give up their freedoms for security. You can bridge this idea into a lot of different topics. But scare tactics. People want to feel safe. People need to feel safe. They're like, well, what do you mean people need to feel safe, Mike? It's like, I don't need to feel safe. I just feel normal. Well, what makes people feel safe? Locks on their front door? Does your front door have a lock on it? If it doesn't, don't tell me. If it doesn't, then you don't need it to feel safe. But I can almost guarantee every modern door has a lock on it. Even in ancient times, why did they have keys? Good old skeleton keys. Because the lock was there so they could feel safe. To feel secure. Put their belongings in a secure location. How about a car? Are there locks on your car? Nowadays, as soon as you put it in the drive, the locks automatically engage. Why? Why do they engage? So you feel safe and secure. And that is an important aspect of our humanity, is to feel safe and secure. Most people want to feel that way. So when they are all worked up and scared that, you know, Hojo Blow, the redneck, is going to come running down the street and shooting everybody because he's had a little bit too much to drink, so we need to take away his freedoms so you will be safe and secure. I don't know why, but people believe that garbage. They'll go along with it. And they'll agree with it. Yeah, we need to take this. When they don't. Goes into my next point, is whether you want to own a firearm or not, it is your choice. You know, as I said, in Switzerland, you don't necessarily have that choice if you're a Swiss citizen and you're a male of legal age and you're physically and mentally capable of using a firearm, you don't have that choice. We have a choice. So let's say you don't like guns. Mike, I don't like guns. I don't want to have anything to do with them. Okay, that is your right. You don't have to have guns. But why should you be able to take my right away? Okay, let's say you like driving your car on Sunday afternoons, going for a drive. Not like a lot of people do that anymore, but let's just say that's what you like to do. Let's say I like peace and quiet. And I don't like it that you drive your car on Sundays. So, I'm going to make it illegal for you to drive your car on Sundays. Is that right? Do you want your freedom taken away just because somebody else doesn't like it? We live in a society now where you can't offend anybody. You can't say the wrong thing. You can't even say stuff that is even remotely wrong. And this is the idea that has been propagated throughout, our idea of society. Oh, you can't say that. That'll offend people. You can't have your gun because it's scary and it offends people. I'm sorry, when I walk through a store and I see a police officer armed, just walking around, minding his own business, okay, he is there to make things safe and secure, wherever he is. Why do they have guards in the mall? Not to look pretty and not to waste money. It's to keep things safe and secure. So I feel more safe and secure with law-abiding citizens owning firearms and in the vicinity than I do where there's none allowed at all. And you should have that choice. You should have that choice whether you want to do that or not. So for you guys listening to this broadcast, it is your choice. Now, I'm of the proponent that a freedom that is not exercised is a freedom you'll quickly lose. What do I mean by that? Well, in some states, I've been in 2 of them, that allow you to open carry. Well, as long as there are people that are open carrying, you are exercising your right. Not everybody knows that you're allowed to open carry in New Mexico. Not many people know that. Well, if nobody knows that, then nobody will notice when they take it away. The right to free speech. Well, if no one is able to speak out freely, then no one's going to notice when it's gone. The out of sight, out of mind idea. And we are guaranteed by the Constitution and its amendments. First one allows us the freedom to petition the government, to freely and peaceably assemble. This one has been a hot topic. They had the 2 million biker march on Washington, D.C. Well, they tried to curtail that. They tried to tell them no. But legally, they had the right to peaceably assemble. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. All these amendments, all these freedoms that we have, we need to continue to exercise them, continue to use them, and to teach our future generations the freedoms we had, so they know what they had and what not to give up. The generation we are teaching our kids today is that guns are evil. That's what's being taught in schools, is that guns are evil. You eat your Pop-Tart in the shape of a gun, and it's like you committed a federal crime. When I was young, I played war. I loved playing war. It was fun. Being a little kid, boom, boom, shooting the bad guys, that was fun. What happened in our society? The education is gone. They teach people you can't offend anybody. But in the process of trying to not offend anybody, you're offending everybody in some way or another, no matter what you do. Okay, I'm walking down the middle of the street. Okay, I offended a driver. Okay, I walk on the left side of the street. I offended somebody because they thought I smelled bad. And they wanted me to walk on the other side of the street. They didn't want me to walk in front of their store. Yeah, some of this may seem a little ridiculous to you. But the stuff that we are teaching our kids is not right. We are not teaching them the Constitution. We are not teaching them these amendments. which is very important. And I would dare say, some of you may have heard this before, but I want to say it plainly for everyone right here and now that's listening to this program. The Second Amendment is necessary to the security of a free state. The right to keep and bear arms is necessary, meaning if you don't have it, our free state is no longer secure. The Second Amendment is necessary to a free state. We must keep this freedom if we want to stay a free nation. When we lose this freedom, all the other freedoms will slowly go with it. So whether you are into guns or not, whether you want to own one or not, you can't deny the fact that the Constitution itself says that to remain free, our right to keep and bear arms should not be infringed. And I would urge you to support the Constitution of the United States and the Second Amendment, because that is what gives you the choice for all the freedoms you have right now. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. Definitely a pleasure having you on the program. If you have any comments or questions about the Second Amendment, where I get some of my information, or just want to send me ideas or something you want me to mention on the program, I've already gotten a few ideas. Just send me an email at miked@erttradio.com. And as always, exercise those freedoms. Live free and die free.